Really? Holy cow, Jim, you're all decked out in maize and blue.
Well, we would not miss being on this show before the game this weekend. So, and at U.S. Staffing, we made it, what do we call it? You can wear your U of M or OSU swag, and I have no OSU swag, never have, never will.
I don't think you own anything red.
I don't think so. And I don't wear them together.
That's for sure.
Yeah, the only exception we can make here is when we support St. Philip, but that's high school, you know.
Yep, sure. And that's okay.
And I have a buddy who is from Wisconsin. He's a big Wisconsin Badger fan, so I know a couple of those. But yeah, don't get me started on the Ohio State red.
We have a lot of fun with it. I mean, actually, we joke a lot about it, and even places I've worked before where it's been closer to the border, we've always had good fun with it. So it's all good fun.
I can't remember a bigger match though. I mean, there've been some big ones, but this is one of the biggest because Michigan is in the top 4. They could make the national playoff if they get a win.
And I hate to say it, but these are the times sometimes when we stumble and fall. We're in this position Ohio State beat us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it though? A few years ago, I think there was a quarterback there by the name of Jim Harbaugh who made a bold prediction that
if you can see it, this is his style of hat right here. I don't have the khakis on, but for sure.
He boasted that they were going to do it. He went out and he did it.
And they did it. Yeah.
And so we'll just see how they do with all of that. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoy the game. Of course, we got Lions tomorrow. And I was saying earlier,
what can you say?
With one of our callers, I was saying, here's what you could say. We just don't want to embarrass ourselves on national TV because we're already the butt of so many jokes that. I mean, and a lot.
Don't ruin your Thanksgiving dinner by having it on during the dinner.
No.
Oh, you don't have to anymore. You can live stream it on your phone. You sit right there at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I specifically asked Joan that. So when is dinner? So when's the game? So, good question. So, well, Tim, when we have nothing else to do around the office, we just break out the Oxford Dictionary and we just start reading it just for fun. Not really.
We look up words all the time just to have fun. No,
but we did find an AP press release from last week that announced Oxford's 2018 Word of the Year. Tim, do you have any guess of what this could be?
Election year, I'm going to say buttheads.
It's probably not too far off.
Probably would. You might find that in the Oxford Dictionary. Well, before we give you that top word from 2018, we're just going to tease you a little bit. So it's a word that you probably don't often associate with the office, but it's the word toxic.
Oh, yeah.
So the word is used to describe relationships, politics, and habits. So someone might have a toxic view of politics, for example, maybe even the office.
Well, another way to use the word toxic is to describe how we see our workplace. In fact, that's our topic this morning. Is we found an article from the Forbes online magazine called "What to Do When Your Workplace Relationships Turn Toxic."
So, Tim, how would you describe a toxic workplace? What would it be like to work in a toxic workplace?
I've seen it in 2 different ways, Jim. Okay. One where the company makes such cuts or unfair edicts or doesn't support their employees to the point where nobody in the workforce trusts each other and nobody helps each other.
Yeah.
And then the other one is where you have a couple of employees that really don't hit it off or get into an altercation, and then the rest of the team has to choose sides. And
very divisive.
And it just divides the whole place, and it's just no fun to be there.
Well, that does happen, and so this sort of workplace leads to, also leads to poor health and really even damages personal relationships outside of the office. So the article that we're talking about gives us some tips on how to handle a toxic team environment, a toxic workplace.
Yeah, this whole discussion on toxic workplace is really about bullying in the workplace.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this isn't a problem behavior that stops at high school. We as adults do this to each other as well. According to some studies, nearly a third of the workforce is bullied in the workplace.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I know it. So let's look at some tips to keep the bullies at bay and the toxicity out of the workplace.
Yeah, so one of the first suggestions this article brings up is to calmly, not violently, but calmly speak up. I mean, let's face it.
No pounding fists on the tables.
Right. No throwing things around. Let's face it. It can be uncomfortable for employees to speak up against the abusive behavior that drives a toxic work environment. You know, instead of giving in to intimidation tactics, employees should politely vocalize what they're seeing and talk about the impact of that behavior. You know, in other words, you call out the bully, you call out the bad behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. The second suggestion to reduce toxicity in the workplace is to not counter gossip. And so this is when employees try to one-up the bully. They only make themselves look bad when they do this. And really, they should take the high road rather, because it just increases the toxicity of the workplace.
Nothing ever gets better when you just involve yourself in that. You know, somewhat related is this third suggestion, and that is don't conform to bad behavior that leads to a toxic workplace. You know, instead, employees should be comfortable with voicing a calm, professional opinion when they don't agree with this bully's perspective or his or her assumptions.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, silence in these situations can lead. It's assumed that your silence is assent to the bully's behavior.
Yeah.
So employees need to feel free to voice dissent of the bully's views. Don't smile or laugh just to keep the peace, and I know sometimes that's kind of like a nervous thing.
Yeah.
But you need to try to be deliberate, and you should set firm boundaries on the types of behavior that you feel are acceptable and feel comfortable enough to voice that against the bully's views.
Yeah, and you got to think about what those behaviors are before you get into those situations so you know how you're going to respond. And, you know, one last suggestion to prevent toxicity in the workplace is to document and follow up. You know, document behavior by sticking to the facts, not the emotions, but sticking to the facts, and follow up with the appropriate parties, you know, if the bullying continues. Maybe it's HR, maybe it's your supervisor, etc.
If there can be one single ingredient to success, it's the ability to build and foster positive relationships. And this toxicity just destroys those relationships within the workplace if it's allowed to go on, and especially if it's not only ignored, but if it's promoted by the leadership in the workplace. I mean, it does start at the top. Yeah. And if it's not nipped there, then it just keeps right on going.
You know, if you're currently working for a company that has a toxic environment, and it's not changing, then maybe it's time to find a new address to work at. Or if you're an employer and you need to swap some toxic team members out, contact us. We have a great pool of team members looking for a new place to work. Ben, how can folks contact us?
Well, if employers or potential team members want to talk with us, they can find us on Facebook at US Staffing Agency. They can live chat with us on our website at usstaffingagency.com. Or they can come into our Battle Creek location at 914 Columbia Ave. Our phone number there is 589-6507.
You know, we hear a lot of times that it's easier to get a job if you're already employed. Do you guys find that's true in your line of work? I mean, do you look for people who already have a job but are looking for another?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there is this perception that if you're already employed, then you're probably more trustworthy than someone that's not employed. And that's not always wrong, but
yeah.
It is an assumption for sure.
In today's unemployment market, everybody's employed.
Everybody.
So
yeah,
the workers that we want are already employed, and we encourage people to stay there until they find another job.
So recruitment's a big deal right now for firms because they're not going to find the people they need out on the street looking for work.
Typically,
as often, you know, they're going to probably have to steal somebody good from somebody else, and you know, if you're not taking care of the good employees that you have, you're going to give them reason to go somewhere else.
This is definitely a market where people should feel free to move around to find the right home where they can stay for a long time. And now is the time to do that. There's a lot of jobs out there, and people can sell themselves and get into the right position for themselves.
Yeah, you can get top dollar, premium dollar now. If you're employed and looking, you can transition for quite a good sum.
Do you think that the fact that we have low unemployment right now, and that translates into probably better job security for people, do you think it's led to less stress in the workplace?
I don't know.
It might depend. Like, employers are pretty stressed because it's hard to find good people and it's hard to keep good people. And so from an employee perspective, it may be a little less stressful. But maybe not from the employer perspective right now.
Yeah, and I mean, as we talked about a little bit here, if the leadership isn't a strong leadership core, then a lot of that's going to bleed down into the culture of the organization. And I think we saw a stat that like 84% of people are unhappy in their job, and like 73% are actively looking.
Right.
So unemployment is low, but everybody's unhappy.
Yeah. Which leads to stress, I guess.
It does. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sure does. Yeah. Well. So I guess the bottom line maybe from this discussion is if you're one of those 73% of people who are just not happy in your current job, now's a really good time to go see the folks at U.S. Staffing Agency.
Absolutely.
And try to find a better fit.
Jobs are plentiful.
Yeah, they are. And if you've already got a job and a good track record, then you're going to be attracted to another employer.
Yeah.
And, maybe, take the plunge.
Reach out to us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go blue.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Even
go Wildcats, yeah.
I think even Michigan State fans will be, many will be rooting for Michigan this weekend.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And we root for Michigan State fans.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. And how about Northwestern? By
What
the way,
about those?
Congratulations, Ben. I know that you're a Northwestern guy, and holy cow, they win the Big Ten. The West?
The West.
Yeah.
I want so bad Michigan to win Saturday so that we can once and for all
settle this.
Just exactly how lucky Michigan got when they played Northwestern the first
So here's the thing. Like, I may not be to work if we actually do and we play Northwestern. I may not be to work that following Monday if Michigan loses.
A toxic work environment. Over U.S. Staffing, you get Northwestern and Michigan in the Big Ten championship.
Game on, Ben Jones.
That's right.
Something, yeah. It'd be like that golf match Friday between Mickelson and Tiger Woods. There was almost no trash talk at all, and I think somebody said, "Well, you guys got to do a little trash talking to promote this." So their trash talking is kind of friendly.
We don't live by that creed. We do mean trash talking.
Yeah, absolutely right.
All right, so all the more reason to root for Michigan so we can
face
see
off
that spectacle.
That's right.
Ben, Jim, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you a week from tomorrow on our program.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Tim.